Chapter 8. A Sudden Change in Plans. Lake startled awake, prompting Adam to ask, "Are you okay?" His eyes adjusted to her surroundings. She realized she was in the same hospital hallway, sitting next to Adam, her parents lying motionless in front of them. She took a deep breath, thought, it was just a dream, quietly responded to her brother, "I'm fine." She sat up. She could see the same woman who had brought them sandwiches earlier walk down the hallway with the tall man dressed in a blue suit that seemed to be at least 2 sizes too big. Reaching out his hand, the man introduced himself. "Hi there. My name is Carl Biggs, and I work for the state." Both kids looked up. "My job is to help children like you in times like these. You two will need to come with me." Adam could see the man's mouth moving, but could barely comprehend a word he was saying. He stared blankly at the man's suit, focusing on the bright green and blue checkered tie. He physically shook his head and told himself to listen. The man continued, "Over the last couple of hours, I have been working on your cases." Adam glanced at Lake, lifting an eyebrow. Seemingly unaware of their little exchange, Carl continued, "You two are very lucky." Adam and Lake almost laughed at the thought. "That's funny. We don't feel very lucky at the moment." He said, "I have contacted a family that has been on a waiting list for quite some time, and they have agreed to take in little Lake here. Temporarily, of course. That is, they will take care of you until your parents recover," he added quickly, as if he were reminding himself to be cool. "However, this family does not have room for a 12-year-old boy. So Adam will be going to a home for boys until we can find a suitable foster home for him." Looking down at Lake, he smiled and said, "Just for a little while, anyway." Adam closed his eyes. Our world has just been turned upside down, and now this man is trying to split us apart. Barely able to comprehend what was happening, the kids followed Carl Biggs, turning around to get a last look at their parents. Adam was escorted to an empty room and was told to wait there until Carl returned for him. Meanwhile, Lake was taken to the receptionist counter to meet her new foster parents. She turned around to see Adam through the window, and he was looking right at her. As Carl made a phone call and her foster mom grabbed her hand, Lake never broke eye contact with Adam. His whole life, Adam had looked after Lake, and even though his parents were bedridden down the hall, his only concern at that exact moment was what would happen to his baby sister. Adam thought, maybe this was for the best, and maybe she would be happy and safe with this new family. Pacing the room, he couldn't stop the swarm of negative thoughts. Questions like, how could I possibly take care of her now? And what would we do all alone? Were running on a loop through his head. Leaning against the wall, a sudden emptiness formed in the pit of his stomach. Until his parents recovered, Lake was all that he had left in the world, and he was all she had left. They had always stuck together, and Adam was not about to let anyone take her away from him now. Adam had always been the cautious one in the family, never brave enough to take chances or live recklessly, but he felt desperation like never before. He knew that he would do anything if it meant that they would stay together. Adam looked back up at Lake, whose big brown eyes were silently pleading with him to do something. Nothing ever really terrified Lake, but the idea that she might lose every member of her only living family, all in one day, was too much to bear. The man hung up the phone. Adam couldn't hear what was being said, but he could see the man talking with the woman holding Lake's hand. Adam cleaned his glasses on the bottom of his Star Wars shirt, took a few deep breaths, and then put his bare-bones plan in motion. Looking into the glass, he took both hands and raised them close to his face. He slapped himself 3 times fast, first with his right hand against his right cheek, then his left hand against his left cheek, and then his right again. Then, in a low growl, he said, "Let's go." He silently snuck out of the room, dropping on the floor to crawl, using some empty gurneys and a trash can as cover. He got to about 10 feet from them without being detected. Adam sat, with his back to the garbage can, trying to control his rapid breathing. He finally forced himself to pull it together. Out of obstacles to hide behind, he peeked around the can and motioned to Lake that he was coming. Lake, who had never taken her eyes off of him and saw his every move, nodded recognition back to her brother. Adam then took another deep breath before springing towards the group of people. Seeing her brother make his move, Lake stomped on the woman's foot, yelling, "Sorry, lady." The woman released her grip on Lake's hand as she yelled, "Ouch!" Then Lake grabbed Adam's hand, and they both sprinted for the front door, leaving the stunned adults wondering, what just happened? Once outside, they ran into the parking lot. In a dead sprint, Adam reached down and, in one motion, threw his little sister into the bed of a pickup truck, about 4 rows deep into the lot. He hoisted himself up and dove in beside her, quietly gasping for breath. They both lay down, lying motionless. The two could faintly hear the shouts of a man and a woman. Adam knew the adults wouldn't just give up. They couldn't. He knew they would search every single car in the parking lot if necessary. Grabbing Lake's hand, Adam lay down still and tried to think of their next move. As they silently lay there, they could hear Carl and the woman walking around, looking from car to car for signs of the runaways. They seemed to have split up, with the woman walking in the opposite direction, but Carl was slowly nearing the pickup truck. Adam scrambled to think of a plan, mentally kicking himself for not finding a better hideout. Although the pickup truck hid their location from afar, it now became a trap for the runaways. The children knew it was only a matter of time before Carl Biggs would find them. An uneasy feeling started to settle over the pair, and as they hugged each other, they couldn't help but wonder when they were going to see each other again. As he closed his eyes, he felt a small tap on his shoulder. "Adam, the slingshot," Lake whispered. He instantly understood what she meant, quietly holding out his hand. Reaching into her pocket, she grabbed her homemade slingshot, being careful not to make a sound. She handed it to Adam along with a couple of perfectly rounded stones. Adam took care to, quickly, but still very quietly, load the sling. He started to aim towards Carl, the slingshot hovering in the air. Before moving towards the woman's voice, Lake looked at her brother. Adam held his breath and fired, hoping not to make any sounds that would alert Carl to their position. As the rock silently sailed away, the children could see Carl peek into the cap of the truck, slowly walking around. He was just about to check the bed when the rocks crashed near the woman, the sounds ricocheting into the night. She immediately yelled to Carl, "They're over here!" Carl stopped in his tracks, looked up, and started running towards where they heard the noises. Lake and Adam leaned out of the pickup, seeing Carl slowly get smaller and smaller as he ran. They silently cheered as the sound of the adults faded away into the darkness of the night. Their celebration was short-lived. As the gravity of the situation started to settle in, they sat up, and Adam stared back at the hospital, his eyes watering. "We have to go," instructed Lake. "I don't want to leave them," he whispered. "What if they wake up? They need us." Adam knew he was being unreasonable, But he didn't know what to do. Where would they go? What would they do? We need to get out of here right now. I don't know where, but let's go somewhere safer now, Lake urged. Adam wasn't convinced, but he knew he had to once again gather up his courage for his sister's sake. Slowly turning to look at her, he grabbed her hand. He finally nodded. Waiting until the coast was clear, they quietly jumped out of the truck, crouched low, and slinked out of the parking lot. When they reached the road, Adam looked at his hands and patted his pockets, realizing he wasn't holding the slingshot. Adam whispered, "Lake, did I give you back the slingshot?" Lake looked at her brother in disbelief. "No." In all the excitement, I must have left it in the truck. "Adam!" Lake yelled. "Shh," said Adam. "They can hear you." Lake started walking back toward the parking lot. Alarmed Adam asked, "What are you doing?" "We have to go back and get it," Lake pleaded. "Wait." Adam paused. Thoughts were racing through his head, like having a slingshot could be useful, but instead said, "Lake, we can't risk it. They want to separate us. We have to go. You're the one who just told me a minute ago that we needed to go, remember?" Lake stopped walking and turned to face her brother. "But you just gave me that slingshot. I love it." Adam paused and looked intently at his sister. Adam was very proud of the slingshot he made for her and knew it really could possibly come in handy. So, Adam made the decision to go back and just prayed it wouldn't come back to haunt him. He pointed and said, "Hide in those trees and don't make a sound. I'll be right back." Adam peeked back into the lot, but didn't see the adults. He once again mumbled to himself, "Let's go," before he snuck back into the lot in search of the pickup truck. When Adam was gone, Lake immediately regretted making him go. She kicked herself and promised that she would never again be so selfish. She waited in her hiding spot for what seemed like an eternity until finally she heard Adam's familiar voice whisper, "Lake." The reunited siblings broke out into a run down the street, heading towards the bright city lights and away from their home, their family, and everything they had ever known. They were now all alone, with no place to go and nothing besides the clothes on their backs and each other. The worthy siblings were in desperate need of a plan.